Today I'm in Nashville testing the new 2019 Acura RDX A-Spec. As you can see, we have the bright red seats and pretty neat looking interior. Let's start it up, and this is going to be kind of a first impressions video. We're going to kind of get an idea of what it's like to drive this. This is my first hour in the car. I haven't spent a ton of time in it, but already right off the bat I'm pretty impressed with a lot of the work that Acura has put into making this a really ergonomically friendly cabin and a pretty nice driving experience. So first of all, the big news with the new RDX is this touch pad thing right here. It takes a minute for the navigation and the screen to start up, but once we get going, come on, I can show you guys what it's all about. So as you can see, you've got buttons for the climate control, which I really appreciate. Thank you. Heated, cooled seats, all that good stuff. A big knob for the Sport, Sport Plus, Comfort, Winter driving modes. And as well as you get some neat little audio feedback from when you change those modes up. So let's go into this touchpad here really quick. I'll just give you guys a quick, there's a ton of videos on this thing online, but here's just a quick crash course. So basically, where you put your finger on the pad is what is reflected on the screen. And when you press, and it'll give you the navigation. You can go back. The idea for this whole setup is that you want to keep your eyes on the road, and if you do have to look over, you're looking over here instead of down here, and ideally you'll be less distracted. And this has been designed so that you can do it all by touch. You don't have to take your eyes off the road and look down at your hand. There's two screens, as you'll notice. Similar swiping actions, clicking actions, much like an iPhone actually, much like a mobile device. There's a little screen on the right here where you can scroll between a clock, navigation, and music if you're listening to that. We're going to leave it on clock for now. And down here, once you get used to this, this is actually a really, really nice system. It's fast to swipe, and if you want something quickly, you just put your finger on the area that it is in the screen. And as you get used to this, you can almost pretty accurately select whatever you want at will, and it works really quite well. You rest your hand here and you just go to town. Luckily, not all the features in the car are hidden in this system, so you're not going to be needing to use it all the time, but for when you do need to use it, it's fantastic, and I could really see you over time getting used to this over a period of a few days and just using it like a pro. So let's talk about some other cool ergonomic features in this car. One of my favorite things, you can disable stop start with a push of a button, and it's just right here. Let's say you're at a light, it's getting kind of annoying to turning off, turning on again. You just push it right there. It's not hidden in a menu, it's not somewhere weird. You know exactly where it is. You have a nice attractive brushed stainless steel situation here covering the cup holders. There is a phone USB port as well as a couple nicely sized cup holders. And then down here, since the transmission isn't physically connected to anything, you have an auxiliary port as well as a power outlet, and just a nice grippy surface to put mobile devices, a purse, a bag, whatever you want down there. Also, all of your driver assistance stuff, lane keep assist, crash detection, traction control, all of that fun stuff is just right here to the left, as well as on the steering wheel here with cruise control. Another really intuitive, well set up system. We're going to leave it on super handling all-wheel drive for the dash. You've got a tire pressure gauge, a minimal display, maintenance, navigation, trip computer. Yeah, let's leave it on super handling all-wheel drive. There's a nice button here to pop the trunk. Everything is well laid out. Acura has definitely put some effort into thinking this cabin out, and they've done a good job with it from first impressions. You also have this massive panoramic sunroof, which is very nice, and we're going to leave it open today because it is a gorgeous day outside. One of my favorite features of this car, which is well thought out, is all of the storage underneath this cargo area. So I put my bags in here. They're not going to be moving around in this back road that we're going to be driving, and you can kind of close it and latch it shut. These seats also lay flat. Check that out. Tons of cargo space, tons of room back here. You even have another little cubby hole to place some other things. power lifting and lowering tailgate. Let's talk about the looks a little bit. So the A-Spec has this dark trim on the sides, which is kind of nice, a good way to differentiate it, as well as these 19-inch wheels and a bunch of A-Spec badging around the car. The grille, it's there, it's huge, you love it or you hate it. I think it's okay, and the headlights are super cool. Acura's been doing good headlights for a while, and this is definitely no exception. Alright, so there's your crash course on the RDX. Let's take this thing for a drive. Oh, you know what? Let me show you the back seat real quick. These seats are nice and light, easy to put up. Pretty decent amount of legroom back here. And one thing that I really like is that this floor space is almost flat. It's not quite flat, but it's pretty much there, which is pretty impressive for an all-wheel drive vehicle. Usually you have drivetrain bits there, and it just makes for a little bit less of a comfortable backseat experience. But in this case, it's really nice. It's set to my driving position at 5'10". I have a lot of legroom back here. With the armrest down, it's actually super comfortable. I kind of get the armchair feel. My arms are even, they fall to hand nicely, and the seats are pretty comfortable. I also have a great view with this panoramic sunroof. I can see everything. All right, enough talk. Let's go for a drive. Pretty typical key. Numbered is driver 1. Alright, and in typical Topher fashion, we're going to back out of this space just to show you guys the reverse camera. So you've got some options here. You can select between different views, super wide angle, from above, and I don't know what that is. We'll start with that. Pretty good visibility. So far, one of my only complaints in this car, whoa, gotta get used to that. The transmission is not a complaint. I actually like it a lot. I think it's a good, pretty clear, pretty concise system. One of my complaints is it's a little bit tough to tell where the edges of the vehicle are. My sight lines with this hood is massive. It makes the vehicle feel a little bit larger on the road than it really is. Other than that, though, I really like the driving position. It's comfortable in here. It feels nice. The steering is light. And it sounds pretty good. This turbocharged VTEC 4-cylinder puts out a lot of power. It's a nice match with the 10-speed transmission. And as we'll see here, it's a pretty good handling package as well. So I have it in sport mode. It has remembered my sport mode from the last time I drove this car. Shifts are really pretty smooth. You don't feel a whole lot going on. And there's a lot of grip in here. Let's throw it into Sport Plus and sport mode with the transmission, and you will get a lot of revs. It'll pretty much keep you in the power band the whole time. And in this mode, you can also operate the paddle shifters manually. Also, let's go to navigation. Really close ratios with this 10-speed. And it seems pretty responsive. This is looking like a pretty twisty road up here. We've got some extra audio from the engine piped in, I assume through the speakers, or maybe even a sound tube. Really smooth power delivery. Turbo comes on nice and quickly. No complaints performance-wise so far with the RDX. In sport mode, it's even going to give me some revs as I brake. Sport Plus, the paddle shifters are even pretty responsive. Though it's not always going to give me the gear that I want, unless if I go into manual mode. Let's calm down for a second, put it back into sport mode, which is probably a more commonly used driving mode in the RDX, and it behaves really quite well. I think, you know, a car like this is it's a good daily driver. It's a good vehicle for when you want to blast down a back road and have a little bit of fun. Really, no complaints thus far, except for kind of the visibility is a little bit funky, but I think that takes some getting used to, and you would after a little bit of time. My only other complaint is sometimes in the daylight, it's a little bit hard to see your speedometer, at what speed you're going. These red gauges are really sharp, really cool. I bet they're badass at night. But during the day, sometimes they can be a little bit hard to tell what's going on. Really pretty cool graphics throughout this car. I love the graphic design in this. All of the icons and everything are really pretty neatly laid out. They're in places that offer useful information where you need to look, and I think it's a really attractive cabin from a physical and a digital point of view. Feel that super handling all-wheel drive there, clawing away at the pavement. One thing that's really surprising from a dynamics perspective is just how firm the brake pedal is. There isn't a ton of bite, but it's really quite firm, almost sports car firm. There's literally no squishiness, no softness. Pretty nice. Cool bridge. Accelerating normally, this transmission is great. It hunts around a little bit when you're hustling it, but when you're daily driving this thing, you're not going to be flooring it everywhere. It's very smooth, you barely feel the shifts, and it does a good job getting up to speed and finding a gear to stay in. And if you need to drop a couple gears, just put your foot down, it finds it, and you've got some boost. Let's try cruise control here. One of my favorite features in new Acuras and Hondas. Radar guided cruise control works incredibly well in this car. So does the lane keep assist. Basically, it almost drives itself. You really need to keep an eye on it sometimes, but if you need to look away for just a second, it does a really good job of keeping you on the straight and narrow. Works especially well on the highway, and I guess it would work pretty well in a situation like this where we're on a back road with clearly defined lines. It's definitely not perfect. It's a little bit temperamental sometimes. It can get thrown off, but it is overall, I think, one of the better systems out there. And I'd need a little bit more time to live with it to just see, but it works in the background really well, and I can see it being very useful on longer highway journeys or even in rush hour traffic. It's definitely something that I would use on a daily basis for sure. Seamlessly braking here in traffic. I haven't touched a thing. And even the steering assist is keeping me, I guess it's not sensing it anymore, but it was keeping me in the middle of the lane, nicely centered. There's none of this bouncing back and forth. Works pretty well. Alright, so how can we sum up the RDX? Dynamically, it's a nice car. It's an Acura. You know, it's not gonna sizzle your senses, but it has a lot of capabilities. The super handling all-wheel drive is great. I'm sure it's gonna be super awesome in the snow. And from a tech standpoint, this is a car loaded with a lot of technology that isn't necessarily going to be a distraction for you on the road. There's Honda safety systems in place that'll tell you to brake if you're about to hit someone. And just a lot of effort put throughout this cabin to make it just a little bit more of a driver and user-friendly experience. And I really appreciate that. I think that's a pretty noble exercise from Acura, and they've done a pretty good job implementing it from my impressions thus far. Again, I've really only been driving this car for about an hour or so, but this is what I've deduced from that time, and I will update you guys after tomorrow when I've spent some more time behind the wheel and learned a little bit more about this vehicle, but ultimately pretty impressed by the RDX thus far. Oh, also, one neat feature that I learned on YouTube was that, let's say you're in reverse and you take your seatbelt off and you open the door, the car will automatically go into park, so you're not going to kill yourself. Fantastic. Really nice feature with this type of a transmission. But if you want to go in park, it's just a button. Wonderful. Little race car noise there. Alright guys, again, thanks for watching. Oh, these are 20-inch wheels, not 19s. I stand corrected. That's it. See you later.